Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Facebook Live event. I am so thrilled that you're joining me tonight to talk about all things morning work. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Christina DeCarbo Wagers. So, Wagers is my married name for those of you who may not know that. And I am a teacher blogger over at missdecarbo.com. That's my website. I'm a first grade teacher in Northeast Ohio, and I've also taught second grade. And I'm an educational curriculum author. You can find my store over at Teachers Pay Teachers, and just a shortcut to get there is missdecarbotpt.com. And just a little bit more about me. I'm currently on a maternity leave, a 2-year maternity leave. So this past school year was my first year of leave. I'm home with my little boy. His name is Sawyer, and he is 15 months now. And this next school year will be my last year of leave before I head back into the classroom. In the meantime, I have been staying super busy. I've been doing a lot of professional development for conferences, and I've also been doing some literacy consulting work with some area school districts. So it has been a blessing to get to work with teachers over the past couple of years. I'm really excited that you're here, and regardless of the grade level that you teach or the content area that you teach, even if you already have a morning work routine in place for this coming school year that you love, I really think you're going to get a lot of value out of tonight's Facebook Live event because this is something that you can do in all areas of your day. So if you don't want to use what I'm going to share with you for morning work, you can certainly use it in your writing block, in your science and social studies lessons, as a writing center if you'd like. So I just know you're going to get a lot of value. So thank you again for joining me. So we'll go ahead and jump right in because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm actually getting on a plane at 4 a.m. tomorrow to go to the Teachers Pay Teachers annual conference, and I'm not even packed yet. So it has been a really fun, crazy busy evening over here. Before I talk about what I do in my classroom for morning work now, I think it's important that I share with you what I was doing a few years ago. So if you've followed my blog or you followed me on my website or Teachers Pay Teachers for any number of years, you know that there's usually a story behind all of my resources and all of my blog posts. And I'm really passionate about sharing the mistakes that I have made as a teacher because mistakes help us grow. And it's important that as teachers, we share our mistakes. I make plenty of them every day, and I think it is what keeps us going and always helps us to improve. So I found that I was struggling a lot a few years ago with the morning work that I was doing in my classroom. Now, full disclosure, what I'm going to share with you that I was doing does not mean that it is wrong or it's not a good thing to do. I'm just sharing how it personally just didn't work for me in my classroom. And just a real quick little side tip, I am working with some new technology tonight. So if your comments are a little bit delayed, don't worry. I will go back and make sure that I see everything and I will answer your questions as well. And a couple of people that are just joining in have asked me if is the morning work third grade friendly or different grade levels. And I know you're going to be really skeptical when I share this with you, but what I'm going to share with you honestly works with kindergarten. It works with fourth grade. I can say that because I've used it with kindergarten and I've used it with fourth grade. This is a strategy and an activity that you can use across the grade levels, and your kids are just going to take it and run with it. And I'm so excited to dive in. So what I was doing is, I guess what I would call worksheets or practice pages. My kids would come in a few years ago and they would have like a review worksheet. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't working in my room, and let me share with you why. If these reasons have ever resonated with you or you've struggled with this, I would love to hear it in the comments. So one of the things that I found that wasn't working with my traditional kind of worksheet type activity where the kids would come in and they would work on different problems was that no matter what I did, it never reached all of my learners. Have you guys ever had that happen or you've ever felt like that? My advanced students would fly through it so quickly that I was spending more time coming up with fast finisher activities for them than I was than it was for the students to actually do the activity. And then what I also found was we think of morning work, we think of something that we want our kids to do independently so that we as teachers can take attendance and lunch count and the 9 billion things that, teachers have to do within 10 minutes. I'm really convinced that a teacher does more in the 10 minutes or 15 minutes of morning work time than most people do all day, right? We're just juggling so many things. And so that was just not working. And then my kids that were struggling, they were never really able to complete it independently. So they would come to school already defeated. And that was not ever my goal for my little first grade babies or my second grade babies or any grade that you teach. We don't want our kids to come into our classrooms and immediately feel defeat because they know that the paper on their desk is something that is just super hard. Can you imagine starting every single day of school feeling like that? And it just wasn't working out in my room. So I thought there has to be a better way, right? There has to be something else that we can do for morning work that can reach all students, but also, this is a really important part, that it can challenge and provide that rigor and provide that critical thinking. So if you follow me at all, you know that I am really passionate about critical thinking. I'm really passionate about making sure that we are giving our kids the opportunity to think, and we as teachers aren't spoon feeding them, because I am guilty of it at times, and we all are. We are guilty of kind of spoon feeding information to our kids, but it's important that they are the ones doing the thinking. So tell me in the comments below if you've ever felt any of those situations that I've just experienced and talked about. Do you ever feel like that? Do you ever feel like your morning work is just not reaching every single learner in your classroom? So I started to think about what are some of the things that I need in a morning work routine, and is it something, what is it that's ideal about morning work? So one of the things that I want for my morning work routine is I want my morning work to set the tone for the day. I want my kids to come into my classroom and I want them to know that they better get ready because we are going to do a lot of thinking in this room. When our kids come in the morning, they should feel super engaged and excited to be there, and they should know that whatever's waiting for them during those first 10 minutes, they can tackle and they can handle. And somebody asked me the question, is this going to be appropriate for special education students? And definitely, this is honestly going to work for all of your kids. So another thing that I want in a morning work routine is I don't want something that is going to be busy work. Now on the screen I had put something that I had wrote, we both don't have time for busy work. So let's talk about what that means. Both of us means I don't have time for busy work as the teacher, and my kids don't have time for busy work. I have really high expectations for my kids, and I'm sure you do too. And so, if I'm going to get my kids to reach those really high levels of expectations that I have, every single minute has to count in our classroom. And a lot of times it's really easy. Again, I'm going to share my mistakes. I've been there, I've done that. I have thought, oh, it's just morning work, right? It's just 10 or 15 minutes of the day. It's not that important. But let's think about that. If we're spending 15 minutes of morning work time, if we take that 15 minutes all through across the week, that's 75 minutes that our kids have been utilizing for morning work. 75 minutes a week is the equivalent of some teachers' reading blocks. So making those minutes count is super important. It has to be something that's productive and efficient, not just busy work. Another thing that I thought of when I thought about what I want in a morning work routine is I wanted something that would integrate science and social studies. Now, I don't know about you, but on the screen it says, I always have enough time, said no teacher ever, right? I mean, no teacher has ever said, I have so much time, I don't know what we're going to do now. I mean, maybe we'll just throw in a whole nother science lesson. That doesn't happen to me. And so thought about what can I do in morning work that's going to integrate science and social studies so that that's going to free up some time and it's also going to allow my kids to make important connections from what we're doing in morning work time to what we're doing later on in the day for our lessons. And when I was going through these struggles, when I was kind of feeling this frustration of morning work, I had tried, by the way, I had tried to use morning work that was all differentiated. So I went through about 4 months where I had ran off copies of different practice pages for my higher, my more advanced students, and different ones for my struggling students. And if you know me in real life, you know I am pretty type A, and that was just chaos for me. I mean, and again, it could have just been me. It wasn't working for me, but I had mounds of papers everywhere, and I was trying to figure out if this paper goes to this kid and this. And then when they switched levels in first graders apply, they grow so much so quickly during the year that I could not keep up with what kid was supposed to be matched with what differentiated level of morning work, and it just was a little bit crazy. I also wanted something, and I'm sure you do too, I wanted something that was easy to prep because the last thing I have time to do as a teacher is spend all kinds of time in the evenings prepping morning work when it's supposed to be something that's effective but allows me to take attendance and lunch count and all of that stuff. So around that time, my first graders and I were doing a unit on long ago and today. And so we were talking about what life was like back then and what life is like now. And I was having so much fun. If you know me, I love antiques and I love vintage shopping and I love all that stuff. I was having so much fun talking about all kinds of antique objects with my kids, and they had no clue what most of them were. And we were just having so much fun talking about what a pencil sharpener used to look like long ago and what it looks like now, and bringing in different egg beaters, and just talking about how that has changed. So what I did was I was using the strategy called See, Think, Wonder. Now this is not a new strategy. See, Think, Wonder has been around for a long time. I mean, when you think of KWL charts, you think those have been around for a long time. A lot of teachers may not know this, but See, Think, Wonder was a strategy that was originally used by artists. And so artists would look at a painting and they would talk to each other about what they were seeing in the painting. They would talk about what strategies the artist had used and what techniques they had used. And then they would talk about what they thought about the painting or the sculpture or the piece of art. They would talk about what they thought the artist maybe was trying to symbolize or what message was that artist trying to convey. And then they would ask questions about what they were wondering. Teachers then have taken that strategy and we use it in our classroom. So if you've used See, Think, Wonder in your room, tell me in the comments below because I would love to hear that. In my mind, I was thinking this is a fantastic strategy. Let's use it for morning work. Again, if you don't want to use this for morning work, you can just use this at any point in your day. So what I did that day was I threw up, I'm going to show you on the screen, I threw up a photo on the right side of my screen, that's my smartboard in my classroom, and I threw up a photo during our long ago and today unit about those were antique lunch pails. Now when I do this, I do not tell, this is really important, I do not tell the kids what the picture is. So I threw that up and my kids immediately said, "What are those?" And I took the question and I gave it right back to them and I said, "Well, what do you think they are?" And we started to talk about what we see. One of my kids that day said, "I think they're old." So I said, "Well, what do you see in the photo that makes you think that they're old?" They started talking about how it was rusty and how it looks like it had been used for many years. And then we went through the process of See, Think, Wonder. So we talked about what they think it's used for. They came up with all kinds of really great ideas. They thought it carried water from the well. And then to be totally honest, most of the time your kids are going to figure out what these photographs are and what they're used for. And we started to talk about how they're lunch pails. And they also were wondering questions. Now, I didn't tell them what they were until the very end. Now, after they did, I'm going to show you on the screen here. So, what I started to do was I gave them a paper I have lots of differentiated papers, and I'm going to show you more of what these templates look like a little bit later. But you can see on the left-hand side that they went through the process. This would be first grade, towards the beginning of the year. They went through the process. They described what they saw in the photograph, what they think, and what they were wondering. So they were asking some questions. When they talked about what they think, we talked about, what do you think they could be used for? What do you think they're made out of? What do you think, why do you think they're important? Why were they important long ago? And they were writing down all of their responses. Now, if you're kindergarten or you're teaching and your kids might need to draw to explain their thinking, I'm going to show you some examples in just a minute, so hang in there with me. After they filled out their form, they get 2 to 3 minutes to turn to each other and talk about what they think is going on in this photograph and what are they wondering and what do they see. So we have a lot of oral language happening in my classroom during those first 15 minutes of the day. And if you've ever been to a conference with me, you know how passionate I am about the importance of oral language in our classrooms. It's the foundation of learning. And so our kids need to have lots of opportunities to talk to each other in really rich ways. After they discussed with each other what they thought about the photo and what they are wondering, then we had a class discussion. And in the class discussion, we all talked and kind of shared our ideas. And then I then told them what the photograph was. Most of the time they were right. And I shared a little bit of information about that photograph. Let me show you an example of some of the writing that I was receiving in first grade around November and how this can work with all kinds of students. So here's a little example picture, and the pictures on the screen are from two very different writers. So on the left-hand side, this is a student who was working really hard on getting 1 to 2 sentences down on the paper. And on the right-hand side, I had students in my class who were just going to town and they were filling up full sheets of paper in the 10 to 15 minutes of our morning. Now, how awesome is that, that all of this writing is happening within the first 15 minutes of our day? So this is really something that is applicable to so many students. It also allows us to pre-expose information that's coming up in a unit or might be coming up later in the day. So we can show them a photograph. Let's say we're talking about forces in motion in science, and that's coming up later on in the day. I can show them a picture of all kinds of different, I can show them sandpaper and we can talk about friction and we can start to talk about all kinds of things in our morning work time. Here's another example of some of the writing that I was receiving and some of the pictures. So there's a picture of an antique coffee grinder. I don't know if any of you kind of saw that and might have known what it was. We talked about pyramids. We actually used that photo when we were talking about 3D shapes in math. And so we made those connections in the morning. And then at the bottom is an antique juicer. So we did a lot of long ago and today pictures as well. Now, if you're kindergarten, you might be thinking that's a lot of writing for my kids in the first 15 minutes of the day, especially they're doing this independently. I've done this with kindergarten and we just use drawings to explain our thinking. When our kindergarten babies and our first grade and our second grade babies, all of our kids, when they draw pictures, that is truly a wonderful way of thinking through the process of what they want to say and what's going on in their brains. And so here's some examples from kindergarten. Now you can see in the corner, we were talking about growth mindset with these kindergartners, and I thought this was adorable, so I have to share. So you can kind of see in the picture, it might be a little hard to see, but one of these little babies thought that that was a picture of worms. And they were wondering at the bottom, he said, I wonder where worms live. I wonder where their home is. And that's why he had drawn a picture of a house. Now, was he right? No. But was he thinking first thing in the morning? You betcha. So there was a lot of thinking going on in his little brain right at the beginning of the day. On the right, one of the little kindergarten babies thought that it might have been biscuits and like bread dough before it was put in the oven. And he was wondering how you cook it. And then at the very bottom, you can see that I have a kindergartner who was, at that point in the year, they were starting to write sentences. And so we gave them that writing template to use. Okay, so truly, you can use this with all kinds of grade levels and content areas. And really, if you don't want to use it for morning work, how awesome is this to put into your writing block and your science and social studies? Now, the most important thing for me when I started to use this with my kids during morning work, so when my kids come in the morning, I have a photograph displayed on the smartboard, and I'm going to show you where I get those photographs from. And they grab, the only thing I print off at the beginning of the week is they grab their writing templates and they get started seeing, thinking, and wondering. What I noticed after doing this for about a month, and I've used this for a couple of years now in my class, was my kids' vocabulary started to increase. Their descriptive writing started to increase because they had to use really vivid vocabulary and really descriptive writing for that C part at the beginning. Their oral language skills started to soar. They really started to understand how to have a conversation with each other and bounce those ideas back and forth during those 2 to 3 minutes of class discussion time. So it was a really, really awesome thing to see happening just in the very beginning of our day. You have to think, I'm taking attendance, and all of this wonderful learning and thinking is going on in my classroom, and we haven't even started our lessons yet. So it was pretty awesome. The most important thing, however, that took place when I started to use this in the mornings in my classroom was that my kids started every day with success and not defeat. So we talked about that child who comes in the morning and what's laying on their desk is just really hard for them. And imagine that little baby coming in every day and knowing that the paper on their desk just isn't a good fit for them. And they're starting off their morning and their day with that kind of a tone. That is never what we want for our kids. We want our kids to come in and we want them to not be able to wait to see what their teacher has in store for them. So with this model for morning work, my kids are able to come in. They get so excited to predict what they think, what picture is going to be on the screen. They are so excited. And when they know what it is, we make it a rule in my classroom that they are not to tell their friends until they have, we have gone through and we have that class discussion time where they can talk to each other. So you'll hear them like, oh, I know what this is. And then they get busy writing. And then other kids are kind of wondering and they start to think through that process and they make some guesses. Their inferencing and their questioning skills also soared when we did this activity every day. So I wanted to also share with you as well. I don't expect my kids to just come in on the first day of school and just start this. We spent a couple of weeks, just so you know, in my classroom, we spent a couple of weeks practicing this procedure. And we did it as a whole class the first full week. I showed them a picture and we shared the pen and we did a shared writing. And together I wrote down what do we see, what are we thinking, what are we wondering, so that I could model what that looks like for them. The second week, we did it as a whole class, and I was really there facilitating and walking around and assisting. And then after they had a really good grasp of the process, I was able to then give them that independence while I was doing my morning work tasks. And so somebody's asking me how long do we take to discuss the picture? So we take about 2 to 3 minutes to discuss the picture together without me. And then it takes me about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to talk with the whole class about what we see. And then I'm going to show you in a minute what I use to share facts about the photograph with them. So it's a really quick process. My morning work time is about 15 to 20 minutes by the time they get in. What's nice about this too is that when I have kids that come in late, if they don't get done, it's okay, right? It's not going to be the end of the world if they write down what they see, what they think, and they just don't get to the questions because they can verbalize that when they come in later. So I'm eliminating that time of having kids doing makeup work for morning work, which is giving me more work to grade and check and all that kind of stuff during my lunch and my planning time and in the evening. So we've just completely eliminated that. So that's a really wonderful question. Now, where do I get the photographs? So you can definitely take photographs from wherever you'd like. So you can use photographs from magazines or from the internet and display them onto your board, or you can print them out if you don't have a screen. If you're someone like me though, and you like everything kind of ready to go, I have done all of the work for you. So let me share with you what that looks like. So I have a few years ago, actually, I made a See, Think, Wonder, Write resource packet in my curriculum store on TPT. And that original pack has 75 content-based photographs. And you can see at the bottom of the photographs, I've put the symbols for See, Think, and Wonder. So we have a washboard, and then we have weather tools, we have all kinds of great things. If that is something that you want all together, I'm going to share the links for these resources at the top and at the bottom of this Facebook Live. So I have an original pack, and I know that some of my friends who are watching this right now, I can see your comments, you have that pack and you are using that pack. When I originally made that, I wanted to implement it into my morning work, but I was thinking I would use it in the mornings a couple of days a week. It ended up being such a huge hit in my classroom that I used it every day. And a lot of you were with me and you were asking, we need more if we're going to make this last for the whole year. My kids need more photographs. And so after a couple of years, I have finally, life has been pretty busy, having a baby and everything. I have made an expansion pack that I just posted to my store this week. It has 100 extra photographs. So you now have 175 photographs. If you used it every day, that would give you 35 weeks of morning work. You're not going to do this on the first week of school. We're going to work on routines and procedures. And the last week, I actually had my kids bring in photos. That was kind of fun at the end of the year. I'm going to share also what's included in the resource. I have fast fact pages. You can see them on your screen of every photograph. So every photograph comes with a fast fact page, and this is wonderful for the teacher because this provides you with a quick background of what that photograph is. And what I do is I just share this on my screen and we read the facts together, and this gives them a really nice, quick little glimpse of information about the photograph. It's really wonderful because it pre-exposes them to what's coming up next in my lesson. So for example, there's a photograph of penguin eggs, and in the winter, we always do like an Arctic unit in first grade. So I had penguin egg pictures up on the board, and that's what they were seeing and thinking and wondering about. And then I gave them some information about penguin eggs in our little quick discussion time. Well, when we got to science time and we were reading an informational book, my kids had so much schema already because of what we did in morning work. So it was really, really awesome. I also, in the resources, have differentiated writing templates. Let me show you what these look like as well so you can get a little glimpse of these. You'll see on the very left that I have a couple of kindergarten versions. I also use these at the beginning of first grade as well. If you're special education and you want your kids to draw, these are really great to use too. They have I have ones that have the prompt, the I see, I think, I wonder, and then I have other versions that I have taken that prompt off so that your kids eventually throughout the year will have to write that themselves. You can see on the far right, I have some second, third grade templates there for you. I've taken the prompt off for you there as well. You could also do this in a notebook, and your kids could draw their eyeballs and their light bulb and their question mark on their own. So all of that is there for you. So the original pack has 75 photos. The expansion pack has 100 photos that I just posted. So if you already own the original, you can just grab the expansion pack. If you don't own any of them, though, I'm going to share a great bundle that I have put together for you. And somebody's asking if I have like thematic photos. Now, the expansion pack has some themed photographs, and I'll kind of share those I'll talk to you about those in just a second. So until Monday, I have all of these packs at 25% off. I usually only do 20%, so this is a pretty deep discount if you want to go ahead and grab that for the rest of the year. This is the bundle pack that was posted. It's traditionally $18.50. If you grab it until July 17th, you can grab it for $13.87, kind of an odd number, but that's what the 25% off came to. And you can find this in my store by going to msdecarbotpt.com. I put a banner on the front of my store, so if you follow that pink arrow and click See, Think, Wonder, Write. That will take you to the bundle. Um, Again, someone was asking if I had themed pictures. So in the expansion pack, a lot of you were asking for seasonal pictures. So I did throw some of those in there. For example, I took a reindeer photo and I kind of chopped it off at the top. So the only thing your kids are seeing are half of the reindeer antlers, and they have to kind of think through what that might be. Remember, don't tell them first. But a lot of my kids, when I did this, they thought that they were tree branches. And then I had a student who had a lot of background knowledge. He went hunting with his dad a lot, and he was the one that said, "No, I don't think those are branches." And he started to write about antlers, so then they thought they were deer antlers, and they really did use their inferencing skills to figure that out. So I have some seasonal photographs in there for you. I have a close-up of, I think there's conversation hearts, an egg yolk. So they really have to kind of think about what that might be, and you can just use these photographs for all kinds of fun thinking, all kinds of things in your room. Um, just a quick organizational tip and trick, by the way. So in the resources, I have included, this might be hard to see, I have included clickable table of contents to all of the photographs. And yes, somebody said thank you for including landform pictures. So I included landform pictures in the expansion pack. There's also habitats. There's an urban, suburban, and rural community picture. Lots of social studies and science integration for your day. So I'm so glad you like that, Melissa. Thank you. Okay, so if you print out the clickable table of content pictures, I I put these into my lesson plan book. I've also just posted it right by the bulletin board by my teacher desk. And whenever we use a picture, so let's say that morning I decide to throw up the picture of a peninsula. If we were talking about landforms, I'm just going to take my pen and I'm going to cross off peninsula so that I know that I've used that photo. So the next day, I just look at my table of contents pictures and I figure out what picture I want to use that day and I cross it off so that I don't get confused. So that's a really great little organizational kind of tip for you if you're somebody that's using this See, Think, Wonder, Write resource. If you have any other questions and you are wondering anything else that you want to know that I might not have shared, please go ahead and drop your questions into the comments. I will definitely take a look at those and make sure I answer them for you. I'll throw the link up again. Again, this is where you can find it in my store. Go to msdecarbotpt.com and click on that See, Think, Wonder, Write banner right there. And then other than that, I hope that this gave you a really great strategy and an idea that you can use in your classroom. If you don't use it for morning work, try this out this year. Throw this into your writing time. Use it as an intro for your writing block. Throw it into your science and social studies unit as a really great attention grabber at the beginning of your lesson and see what your kids can do. And the critical thinking and the amount of inferencing and questioning and vocabulary that your kids are going to gain from this, it's really, really valuable and really, really worth it. You're going to love it. Thank you so much for joining me here on my Facebook Live event. I am going to be coming back on Facebook Live in a couple of weeks. This week, tomorrow, I am going to the TPT conference, but then, and then my husband and I are moving to a new house, so things are going to get a little crazy here. But I'm going to try to jump onto Facebook Live again in a couple weeks, and I'm going to share a couple of really fun vocabulary games that you can use with your students when you come across multiple meaning words this year. And then I'd also like to take you behind the scenes and show you what's included in my new vocabulary curriculum packs for kindergarten, first, and second grade. I'd love to show you the weekly routine and how I explicitly and directly teach vocabulary. Jen Benko from Out of This World Literacy and I, we collaborated on this, and it's a really big deal for us this year. We're so excited. So I'm going to share all of that with you in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much for tuning in and joining me. I appreciate you taking the time, and I hope everybody has a really, really wonderful night. Thank you.